Hello friends, how are you all? I'm Nupur. Welcome everybody to my YouTube channel Nature at the Very Core of Science. Today I'm just going to talk about part of the US history, and it is about the Dust Bowl. And the Dust Bowl was a period of severe drought which just happened to be greatly damaging the ecology and agriculture of the American as well as some Canadian prairies during the 1930s. Great Plains, broadly Midwest, we can say that was impacted by Dust Bowl, and states like Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and even reaching north into the Dakotas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana. Within Canada, like a couple of places like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, those were also very much affected during this period by the Dust Bowl. I'm hailing from Midwest, so I'm just very much interested about what happened during that time in Midwest. It was named the Dust Bowl during 1930s because it suffered a severe drought. The soil turned to dust because it was extremely dry. There was no rain, the crops couldn't grow, the land turned to a desert, and farmers could no longer grow crops. Dust storms that damaged the region between 1931 and 1939. Now, you might think that what could be the causes behind this? And it is not only one, there are a number of factors that contributed to the Dust Bowl. So the prairies, that means the grasslands in the Great Plains. So these were turned to farmland by farmers in the late 1800s. They farmed the same land many times and plowed the soil too much. They also let their livestock eat so much of the grass that it damaged the land. Farmers plowed even more grasslands in 1929-1930 because the country entered the Great Depression. People across the country didn't have much money, and farmers needed to grow more crops to make money. So this is very much understandable. And in 1930, then a drought or lack of rain happened, and it lasted several years and dried out the soil even more. Much of the region was then plowed by farmers to grow wheat or to provide land for cattle to graze. And wheat did not anchor the soil or help hold moisture. So the years of abuse basically destroyed the topsoil and turned it to be dust. So since so much of the soil had turned to dust in the Midwest, huge dust storms began in 1931. There was 14 such dust storms in 1932. 38 more occurred in 1933. People had trouble breathing, and dust piled up to the point where some houses were buried. People were forced to wear masks to cover their mouths and noses. The dust storms were so large that they carried dust all the way to the east coast of the United States. The giant dust storms were also known as black blizzards. One of the worst dust storms occurred in Sunday. It was April 14, 1935. Great walls of dust and high-speed winds engulfed entire cities and regions. The dust storm was known as Black Sunday. It was said the dust was so thick that people could not even see their own hand in front of their face. The storm even blocked out the sun. Farmers sometimes strung a clothesline between their house and barn so they could find their way back through the dust to the home. Imagine. Now, the impact-wise, it became nearly impossible to live in the Dust Bowl. People spent almost all their time trying to clean and get dust out of their homes. Many farmers were forced to move because their crops couldn't grow, and livestock were often choked to death by the dust. Many farmers and their families then migrated to California, where they heard there were jobs. Farmers became desperate for any type of work, even if it required long days just for enough food to survive. Farmers who moved from the Dust Bowl to California were known as Okies, and that is basically short for people from Oklahoma, even though they were not all from Oklahoma, but the term was used to describe any person from the Dust Bowl region looking for work. And California eventually made the law making it is illegal to bring poor people into the state. So nobody liked the migrant workers, It is the truth, the hard truth of life. Then how did we recover from that? So federal programs were implemented by President Franklin D. Roosevelt to help farmers who stayed. They taught proper farming practices to preserve the soil. Through crop rotation, farmers rotated which crops they planted in each field to keep the soil healthy. Not totally out of nutrients. The government purchased land to allow it to regenerate. They planted around 200 million trees between 1934 to 1942 from Canada to Texas to prevent future dust storms, wind evaporation, and erosion. Irrigation systems help to bring water from rivers or underground to farmlands. These gave crops water even if it didn't rain. Rain finally began falling again in 1939. Crops grew and the Dust Bowl ended. Much of the land was recovered by the early 1940s. The new ways of farming were here to stay. The US government still helps farmers conserve soil today by paying them not to farm certain fields. Many farmers still use irrigation too.